Hello and welcome to the first bonus lesson inside the Patient Challenge, and we're calling it the Clinician to CEO, the Mindset Shift. My name is Dr. Derek Barron.
Hi, and I'm Terri Barron.
We both know from working with other people and having our own practice and then working with other people again, Terri being in the corporate level, that there's a lot that goes on between the two ears when it comes to practice. So we wanted to talk to you about the importance of the mindset. Inside the Patient Challenge, of the modules that we have, this was a bonus module because we know how important it is for you to, jumping ahead, get rid of some limiting beliefs that you have, understand why you may be thinking the certain ways you're thinking, but along the way, going from a clinician when you first start out to when you advance to being the owner of your clinic, having other individuals work underneath you, you're shifting from the clinician to the CEO and in a leadership model. So we want you to make sure that we can help you if you have any struggle points through that. So I'm going to kind of bring up our slide deck on here. And again, props to Terri here for doing a great job in the design. You can see here that we've got a red brain because that's where we kind of start. We're advancing through, and then we're going to finish with kind of the blue brain here at the end because there is this shift that we go through along the way. So we hope you enjoy the ride with us. And we'll start it off by just the definition of the mindset. It's a noun. Don't ask me adverb, all that kind of stuff. I'm not great at that. So mindset basically is the deeply held beliefs, attitudes, and assumptions we create about who we are, how the world works, what we are capable of and deserve, and what is possible. So there's always the question, is the mind in the brain? I'm not going to get too deep off into that and that subset, but the mindset is critical. And it's good that you have a definition that we go through as we go through the rest of this bonus lesson, because it will come back to the definition because it's such a strong point that we'll start with.
Absolutely. Just keep some of these words in mind. Beliefs are very important when it comes to your mindset. Both at your current state as well as at what you would like to set as your future state. Keep in mind that considerations of what we are capable of and especially what we deserve is very rooted. Our mindset determines what we're capable of, what we deserve in terms of setting our goals and moving forward again. So those are all really key words in this definition of what your mindset is, both in your current state as well as in your future state. And we're hoping that this lesson is going to help you to recognize where you're at now, and if there is an improvement for a future mindset state for you, that we might provide some insight, some snippets, some inspiration for how you can take some steps to advance that mindset from the base level of a clinician to that more advanced level of considering yourself a CEO of your business.
All right. So as you can see by this slide deck, this image, actually, I'll go full screen on here so you get a better view of it. No matter where you start in here, I think everybody looks at the very bottom, which is results. Everybody wants better results in relationships. Everybody wants better results in their practice. But we believe that, everything starts from the deep inside of the stories that we tell ourselves personally or the stories that we've told ourselves from our business. Those influence everything else around us. But it starts with what's going on with your thoughts, and your thoughts lead to feelings that you have. Those feelings lead to certain actions you either take or do not take. Those actions lead into results. The results that you get in life or in business lead to certain beliefs, and those beliefs will give you an identity. So at any point in time around this cycle, you can take an active position to make a change. So if the results you're getting in your life or your practice today aren't what you want, you can somewhat backtrack to the actions and say, okay, am I doing the appropriate things? So inside our Patient Challenge, are you doing what we suggest with Google My Business or asking for reviews or getting video testimonials? Did you go through making sure you are converting the best way you can to get hot leads that'll convert versus poor leads that are coming in? And are you making yourself a local social media influencer? So just going back to the actions and any way through this cyclical pattern, you can make a change.
Absolutely. And remember, it all centers around your story, and that is your self-talk and what you are telling yourself. We get to choose how we talk to ourselves about whatever it is that's happening. You can create your own story around why you have the thoughts you have. You can create your story about any of these categories, from feelings to actions, beliefs, identity, results. So it does center around your self-talk and your stories, which you could kind of frame that as your mindset. How you choose to create your stories, frame your stories, can influence any and all of these categories. That all together, this is a great graphic that makes up what your full mindset is based on.
And what this brings up is it's basically our signature program called the practice leverage method. And if you see kind of towards the bottom left-hand side, you will see actually a red brain that's there. And then as it goes from the left to the right, up to the next level, and then finishes on the far right, it goes to a green. Those little pink sections in between there, those are little brains as well. And the reason that is said that way is your mindset will be shifting at each and every level. You will get challenges along the way. You will have failures and you will have successes along the way. So your mindset will go through a shift each and every time. So who you are today must change if you have higher goals and dreams for yourself for who you want to be in the future. And the practice leverage method, this is just how we work through our clients. Again, it's our signature program where we set up a practice foundation, we set up a patient foundation, we set up practice drivers, and we set up practice accelerators. So that's just the way in which we want you to understand that all along the way, inside the patient challenge and inside the practice leverage method, you will have challenges. You will have to deal and fight with the little demons, or sometimes that little person on your shoulder that says, you can't do that. You don't have the ability to do that. You remember what your parents said. You remember what your coach said. You remember what the competitors are doing. You're not going to be able to beat them, but we promise you, we will help you get through that and that self-talk and how you can help that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, in this one, this is our practice leverage method and the success roadmap. There are challenges that you have to go through on this. If you look on the left-hand side, there's a green arrow that goes from the bottom left up to more of the top right and the top of that. And that's new patient flow. Every single practice finds success the more new patients that come in. There's stability that goes along the way. But if you look at this entire graphic, you have to have a mindset shift that if you're on the bottom and you are inconsistent and struggling financially in the practice, to shift to know that you can go to the next level above that. And on the right-hand side, it talks about where you have to build proof of what you're doing in your practice. And on the left-hand side, it talks about how you're frustrated with certain things. I'm a great provider. I believe everything that I'm doing and I should be busier. My competitors are beating me. All of those things are where that little you on your shoulder can beat you down.
Absolutely. So from there, you're going to continue to go up this pyramid. That is where you were going, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
So you definitely have to continue with that self-talk, that positive self-talk, go to the whole mindset shift that you have to go through and acknowledge that it may be your thoughts that are limiting you in moving from one level to the next, not just the number of patients that are coming in the door. And that goes on, and that's continued through every level, from the inconsistent level through consistent, reliable, and then all the way up to that dream practice peak of the pyramid. So the mindset, and it's whether it's your self-talk, your beliefs, your actions, your end result, all of that feeds into actually how your business, how your practice is going to move and succeed. Remember, when you are the CEO of your own business, whether you're a solo practitioner, a one-man show, or whether you have 40 clinics and 100 employees, you are the CEO and you are responsible for everything. We've talked in a couple of our tutorials about sometimes when you rely on a referral source for your patient flow, and suddenly that referral source moves or retires, and a huge portion of your patient flow has been suddenly taken away. It's really easy to blame that referral source for the reason for why your practice isn't going to succeed or is going to have a dip or a challenge or a struggle. You need to take responsibility. If your mindset is in a place where you're focusing on moving yourself up this success roadmap to the top, you're going to be prepared. And even if you're not fully prepared, you're going to have the tools and the resources to make the adjustments along your journey so that you will continue to be successful.
So as we look at this, it's another one of the graphics that we have within our program, the practice leverage method. It's called the success factors. And what's interesting is you can see on the far right of the graphic, it goes from the clinician to the CEO. Again, you may be the CEO of your practice when you initially start out, but there's an advancement that you'll go through. If you look on the left-hand side where it says mindset, mission, vision, and purpose, each rung of this pyramid has the mindset, vision, mission, and purpose. It's critical that you understand, again, along the way to advance up the next level, the mindset has to be there. You have to have a winner's and a champion's mindset along the way. And yes, you will get kicked. Yes, you will have failures, but you always have to have that. To get to the next level, to get into the consistency in a practice, you have marketing, sales, systems, and frameworks. To jump up to the next level of strategic planning and financial strategies, you need a different mindset shift as you're approaching the CEO component of a dream practice where you have other people underneath you. You become to have a great leadership culture. You have team building masterminds, and there's the happiness factor that goes into that. And you have to be able to step away from the practice if you truly want to be a CEO that just runs the practice, is not actively in care of it, but you have to be able to deal with everything that goes on, whether it's positive or negative. And another one of our clients that we work with, she had to deal with firing an employee. It wasn't, something she wanted to do. And she actually was sad about it. And, what this sad lead to, it leads to, having fearful and scared. And you don't want that scarcity mindset with it either.
We do want to remind you that even though we've mentioned a couple of times that you'll be put up against failures, we really do actually want to shift our verbiage a little bit. And failures aren't really failures. They're point. Challenges. They're only a failure if you choose not to learn from them. So we do encourage anyone who participates with us inside the Practice Insider's Edge as a client, that you do recognize that as part of your mindset shift, that something that might feel like a failure, we really don't want you to frame it that way. We really want to frame it as a challenge so that it's only going to make you stronger because you're going to take the time to shift your mindset and learn something from that challenge. So just keep that in mind right here in this particular lesson tutorial video. But anytime when you're growing that mindset from a clinician to a CEO, it is not about failures. It's about challenges and struggles, and you're going to be stronger when you go through them. Just keep in mind that even if it's just a mistake, as long as you've learned something from it, it's going to make you better. So as we shift here to the next slide, as we're talking about your mindset, we want to bring up what might be beneath the surface when it comes to achieving the success you want and becoming that acting CEO of your practice, right? So we see here with a very traditional iceberg image that success is on the top. This is what we see. This is what we strive for. But what's underneath the surface that may be pulling us down, that might be bigger and more weighted than the actual success? And the first factor that we recognize that you may have to deal with are fears of being a practice owner and making that mindset shift to being the leader of your practice. And that's okay. Everyone has some sort of fear that they have to address. It is a challenge. It is a struggle. And that's okay. That is there, but it does need to be addressed. We don't want you to block it. We don't want you to ignore it. We don't want you to suppress it. We do want you to recognize that there are normal fears to getting to the success level of being the CEO of your practice. So that's something that can kind of hold you down.
Yeah. And then there are issues that you may have had in childhood, and everybody likes to blame their parents for the problems that they currently have. But you have to make a mindset shift as you're going from the clinician to the CEO to realize that, yes, you may have had issues in your childhood that have caused problems, but you have to take 100% responsibility moving forward, that if you want success, you have to make those changes yourself. We'll kind of, bring up a great point a little bit later in this presentation that talks about what happens in childhood and how you choose to make the difference from that.
Absolutely. So the next factor that can hold you back, it doesn't have to, but it can be a contributing factor to being able to achieve your success, and that's education. And that education can be street smart education, the things that you hear from family, friends, parents at any level of school, probably all the way up to college, perhaps in college as well. Things like being rich people are only greedy. That's actually a form of education. It can be limited didactic education. There's a lot of different things that can, in that category of education, that can limit your success. But again, we're always going to put it back on you, that you are responsible to make those changes, to recognize if you do have a limiting factor belief that was taught to you in some form of education, that you can take some initiative to change that. Now, education can also mean your education in terms of your collegiate education and what you feel that you have achieved in terms of a professional, again, whether it's a doctor of chiropractic, a massage therapist, a physical therapist, your education. You may believe that if somebody went to a more prestigious school, that they're going to be more successful than you are. That can be a limiting belief. You may believe that someone has more letters after their name and therefore they're going to be more successful. That's not necessarily the case. And we want you to be aware that that could be something even subconsciously that you're not recognizing, that you definitely need to take responsibility for, that your education should not be a limiting factor in you being able to achieve your success.
And the belief really is just the icing on the cake, if you wish, because there are beliefs that you have about the fears, your childhood, and the education. You have to control those and move on if you want to truly graduate and the mindset change and the shifts that have to take place going on from the clinician to the CEO and eventually having the dream practice that you desire. So there's something called learned helplessness. And I'm not sure if you've ever heard the story about, the baby elephant and how they control it. So the learned helplessness is when whether it's with a circus or, in a place where they use elephants for work or labor camp issues, what they do for the baby is they chain that baby up to a stake in the ground. You see this one is actually tied to, a concrete or a hook in concrete, so they really can't get away. But a baby elephant is tied with a chain around their foot, tied to a stake that honestly they can't get away. They've tried a few times and they can't get away from it. They just pull and tug and eventually they give up. As that elephant ages, all that owner does is they make the chain around the leg, the foot, bigger, but they don't actually make any changes to the stake in the ground. And as that elephant grows into an adult, they have learned that over time they tried to pull it as an infant, as a young elephant, and they couldn't move it. And now they've given up. So as an adult elephant, with all their might in the world, they could actually even break this chain that's stuck there, but they just don't do it. Now you have to look at this from yourself in your practice. How does this help? How do you have what are called learned helplessness moments? There's ways in which you have to do shifts so you don't have them. And Terri has kind of a great point about that.
Well, actually, no, what you're early, so we're going to get to it in the growth versus the fix. That's mindset. Okay. That's okay. So, we do have a really good example, but it's coming up a little bit, so we don't want to jump.
Okay, so we just want to make sure that there aren't things that have happened in your past, whether it's what your parents said, a colleague said, an educator said, that they told you something that you think has to stick with you. At any point in time, you can make the conscious effort to make the change. And if you're struggling with that, bring it to us in a personal message, put it in the group. We want to make sure that we can help you with that, okay? So what we want to do about this is talk about the growth versus fixed mindset. So I'm going to actually let me see here, bring us back on just a little bit. Sorry.
We know you missed us.
Yeah. So there are components within having a growth mindset, which brings you into a stronger leadership position versus a fixed mindset, which actually falls into the learned helplessness.
Right. So, I mean, you can see on the graphic here the examples of the growth mindset. I can try a different strategy. Is this really my best work? This may be this may take some time and effort. So in a growth mindset, that is what we're encouraging you to be self-talking and reminding yourself of, as opposed to the fixed mindset, which more at the lower level. And it doesn't mean a clinician has this. We're just using it in an example of growth, is that I can't do this. This work is good enough as it is, or this is too hard. And just not being willing to make a change. So here's our little story that we have that goes along with the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. And forgive me if you've heard this story before, but it's a great example. So you have two twin daughters, and they are raised by a single abusive alcoholic father. And both of these girls grow up in the same household, same father, same influences, right? Same environment, same genetics. And once they're adults, we meet up with them again to find out what they have chosen as their paths in life. And one of the twins you meet with and you ask her how life is going. And she is now a grown abusive alcoholic. And when you ask her why she chose to go down this path for life, she says, because my father was an abusive alcoholic. When you talk to the twin sister, the identical twin sister, and you say, where are you in life? She says, I'm actually a psychiatrist, and my specialty niche is that I work with abusive drug and alcohol addicted patients. And we say, why did you choose this path to go down? And she says, because my father was an abusive alcoholic. So the same environment, the same genetics. So what was different about how these two girls, as twins, identical twins, chose to make their life paths? One had a growth mindset and one had a fixed mindset. One felt that they had to go down that path because that's all they knew. One felt they had to go down the path that was 180 degrees different because they wanted nothing to do with what they knew. So that's a great example of being in the same environment and being able to completely choose the mindset that you want, whether you keep it fixed or whether you grow with it.
So we want to talk about reporting versus adjusting. This is a thermometer. And what does a thermometer do, whether you put it in your mouth to take it or it's in your home, or outside on the wall? The thermometer is actually going to do one thing. It's going to tell you the temperature. It only reports. It gives you what the external environment is. It tells you where you're living and what the temperature is where you're at. Now, the difference with the thermostat is it adjusts. So you can be a fixed mindset and only report what is happening, or you can have a growth mindset and adjust to what is happening to you, to the story that Terri spoke about. Or again, we had a client that we spoke about that lost a referral source that was 25% of her incoming patients' referral source that way. So she can choose to just deal with that, or she can say, okay, I have to find a growth mindset and a way to get around that. We're helping her with that situation. So you have to decide, just because something happens, you can make a choice and an action to make it a better situation than it currently is.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Now, a little bit of reflection as we go through this.
Your life is bookended, sorry about that, by the date of your birth and the date of your death, right? So that's what we see on your tombstone, okay? Name whatever you want for your epitaph, and then you're born and your birth and your death date. The time that you spend living in between the day you're born and the day you die is the dash. And we want to remind you that you should make the most of your dash. And how to make the most of your dash is definitely dependent on you and how you choose your mindset.
All right. Again, jumping into this as we kind of wrap it up, you have to look at how are you dealing with the stories that are taking place. Terri shared the story of the two girls. They each had the same upbringing and the same stories in their head, but they made a choice. They took an action. They had a thought, they had a feeling, they took an action, they got a result, and they continued to build upon that. So no matter what happens in your practice, you have to make sure that you're always trying to look forward to the growth mindset. And you know that you're advancing along the way in practice, becoming the clinician to the CEO in their changes. So again, there will be some failures that use them as points to help you grow. There will be successes that you can use as points to grow as well.
Absolutely. Pretty self-explanatory, right? It is up to you to decide to make the clinician to CEO mindset shift. It is a decision. It is an active decision to start to work on this. And unfortunately, we cannot promise that this is going to happen overnight. It takes some work. It takes some consistency. You will meet challenges and struggles along the way, but they will only make you stronger. But to be consciously aware that it is a decision for you to make is absolutely going to influence the success of your practice.
So if you have any questions about any of this, make sure to comment in the discussion points in our group, the Patient Challenge below. We love to be able to help you out, and we know some of the other practitioners that are inside are going to help you as well. So thanks again for paying close attention to this, because it's an extremely critical point. So if you are a private practice healthcare business owner and you have some questions or concerns about how you can make the shift from the clinician to the CEO and the mind shift set that you do in there, we'd love to be able to help you out. Whether you see this on one of our social media channels, put a comment in there below, put the words mindset shift. We'll get back to you on that. Or if you are seeing this on one of the pages, there will be a place in which you can actually set yourself up for a strategy or triage call with us, where we can actually kind of answer any questions you might have, because we want to help you along the way so you can help yourself to make that shift from the clinician to the CEO.
Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And keep in mind that at Practice Insider's Edge, we're here to help you achieve success on so many levels.